Your favorite food might be someone's nightmare. Why is that? That gooey, sharp, slightly funky blue cheese you love on a burger? To your friend, it might smell like old socks. That fresh, citrusy cilantro in your guacamole? Your cousin might swear it tastes exactly like a bar of soap. Every single one of us has a food we adore that someone else finds utterly disgusting. It's a universal human experience that feels deeply personal, but the reasons behind it are a fascinating mix of biology, psychology, and pure chance. So, how do we end up with such wildly different ideas of what's delicious and what's disgusting? It turns out, our tastes are written by three powerful authors: our genes, our culture, and our memories. Before you ever had a choice in the matter, your DNA laid the groundwork for your future food preferences. Our sense of taste is not a blank slate. It's a piece of biological hardware, and everyone gets a slightly different model. The most classic example of this is the great cilantro debate. For the cilantro lovers, it's bright and fresh. For the haters, it's a mouthful of soap. This isn't just a dramatic opinion, it's a genetic reality. A variation in a group of olfactory receptor genes, particularly one called OR6-AT2, makes some people acutely sensitive to the aldehyde chemicals present in cilantro. Those same chemicals are byproducts of soap making. So when these individuals say it tastes like soap, their brain isn't lying. Then there's the world of bitter flavors. Have you ever wondered why some people can chug black coffee and crave bitter greens like kale, while others find them unbearably harsh? You can thank a gene called TAS2R38 for that. This gene controls how strongly you perceive bitterness. People with two active copies of this gene are known as supertasters. They have more taste buds and experience flavors like bitterness with incredible intensity. For a supertaster, the bitterness in Brussels sprouts isn't just a mild note, it's a full-on assault, which could explain why they might avoid them. About 25% of the population are supertasters, 50% are medium tasters, and the remaining 25% are non-tasters who barely perceive bitterness at all. So, the next time someone rejects a food you love, remember this soundbite: you're not picky, you're programmed. Our genetic lottery plays a massive role in the flavors we're capable of enjoying. It's not about being difficult. It's that our tongues are speaking slightly different languages based on our DNA. A second thing to keep in mind is this: your tongue doesn't lie. It just has a different dialect. If genetics is the hardware, your culture and your life experiences are the software that runs on it. From the moment you were born, you were taught what food is. This education is so powerful it can often override your innate genetic predispositions. Think about foods that are considered delicacies in some parts of the world but might seem shocking elsewhere. Century eggs in China, fermented shark in Iceland, or the famously pungent durian fruit in Southeast Asia. For those who grew up with these foods, the intense smells and flavors aren't gross, they're nostalgic, comforting, and delicious. But for an outsider, the initial reaction can be one of pure disgust. This is the power of the mere exposure effect, a psychological principle stating that we tend to develop a preference for things simply because we are familiar with them. The more you encounter a certain flavor, the more you like it. This is why it can take a child 10 to 15 tries before they accept a new vegetable. It's not just about taste, it's about building a sense of safety and familiarity around that food. An aversion to new foods even has a scientific name: food neophobia. It's a natural tendency, especially in children, that serves as an evolutionary defense mechanism to avoid potentially poisonous substances. This process of learning through repeated exposure is how we acquire a taste for complex things like coffee, beer, or spicy food. Almost no one likes the bitter taste of coffee on the first sip. But we see others enjoying it. We associate it with energy or sophisticated adulthood, and we keep trying it. Over time, familiarity breeds enjoyment. A great soundbite to remember here is, familiarity breeds flavor. We learn to love what we know. Another way to think about it is that long before you had a say, your culture wrote your first menu. It decided what was normal, what was celebrated, and what was considered food in the first place. Finally, and perhaps most powerfully, our food preferences are shaped by our personal history. Every meal we eat has the potential to become emotionally charged, creating powerful associations that last a lifetime. Our brains are wired to link flavors with circumstances, and nothing forges that link stronger than a powerful emotion. The most dramatic example of this is conditioned taste aversion. This happens when you eat a food and subsequently get sick, even if the food didn't cause the illness. Maybe you got the stomach flu hours after eating a hot dog. For years, the mere smell of a hot dog might make you feel queasy. This is a powerful, one-trial learning mechanism that our brains developed as a survival tool to avoid poison. As the psychologist John Garcia demonstrated in his famous experiments, rats that were given sweetened water and then exposed to radiation that made them nauseous would avoid that water indefinitely. Our brains are hardwired to create a simple, powerful rule. The last new thing I ate made me sick. Therefore, it is dangerous. But this conditioning works both ways. The positive associations are just as strong. The taste of your grandmother's chicken soup isn't just about chicken and noodles. It's a taste of comfort, safety, and love. A cheap brand of cookies you ate during a happy family vacation might taste better to you than a gourmet version because you're not just tasting the ingredients, you're tasting the joy of that moment. This is why food and nostalgia are so deeply intertwined. So remember this soundbite. We don't just taste food, we taste memories. And sometimes, all it takes is one bad experience to change your palate forever. As this rule reminds us, one bad bite can rewrite your entire palate. So, why is your favorite food someone else's nightmare? It's not one simple answer. It's a complex and beautiful recipe of influences. Your preferences are born from a genetic blueprint that makes you more or less sensitive to certain flavors. They are then shaped and molded by the thousands of meals your culture and family shared with you, teaching you what is familiar and good. And finally, they are seasoned by your own life, your moments of joy, comfort, and sickness that link flavors to feelings forever. Instead of seeing different food preferences as a source of judgment, maybe we can see them as a window into another person's world. When someone says they hate a food you love, they're telling you a story about their biology, their upbringing, and their personal journey. Understanding this can transform food from a barrier into a bridge. It allows us to be more empathetic, more curious, and more adventurous. It encourages us to ask why instead of just saying, yuck. By embracing this diversity of taste, we can learn more about each other and the incredible ways our human experience is both shared and uniquely personal. If this resonates with you, tell us in the comments about a food you love that everyone else seems to hate, and subscribe for more insights into the psychology of everyday life.